Hello and welcome back to Survey of Biology, and today we're going to start Unit 12 looking at the human immune system. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break it down into kind of the three lines of defense. So the first line of defense is to keep pathogens out of the body in the first place. The second line of defense is what do we do once they get into the body, and the third line of defense is once they're in, how can we get specific and fight those pathogens directly. So our immune system is pretty amazing when you consider all of the different things that we're exposed to over the course of the day. Things like bacteria and viruses that you're probably familiar with, fungus or molds, parasites, pollution, toxins in the environment, all these different things, and our immune system does a great job, for the most part, of keeping us healthy. So let's go ahead and start looking at how the immune system does that. So here's just a quick list of some common diseases that are caused by pathogens. So you can see the first three are bacteria, and you may recognize E. coli or maybe salmonella over here that is responsible for food poisoning. Right there. Let's get some red in there. And then you've got things like the protozoa. So this is things you may have heard of, Giardia, which causes diarrhea. Cryptosporidium, the same thing. The helminthes over here, which are the worms. So you may have heard roundworms, tapeworms, and different things. And finally, down the bottom, the ones that you're very familiar with, most of us have had a cold or the flu, the viruses. So anything from hepatitis to the adenovirus, which causes a lot of the respiratory tract infections that we can get. So these are some examples of things that can make us sick and that our body is constantly fighting with our immune system. So first, let's talk about what does make us sick. So the first thing is to talk about a pathogen. So a pathogen is just a bacterium, a virus, or other microorganism that can cause disease. So think back anytime that you've been sick, the cause of that has been a pathogen. So it's kind of a very broad term that we use for things that can make us sick. And in terms of human pathogen transmission, there's four major ways that this can happen. And so the first that we'll look at right here is infection caused by airborne transmission. So this is why you should cover your mouth when you sneeze, because small droplets, particles of saliva with virus and bacteria can be spread throughout the room. It can be caused by waterborne illnesses. And so there's a lot of examples of cholera and other diseases that travel through the water. Infection can be caused by contact and feces. So here is actually picking up, so touching some things like a doorknob and such. And finally, there can be infection caused by pathogens in the bloodstream and tissues. So this is why universal precautions should be taken when dealing with blood and other body fluids. So these are ways that pathogens can be transmitted. Now, how does our body deal with them? So what we're going to look at, as I mentioned before, there's three lines of defense. So the first line of defense is let's keep it out in the first place. Okay, right here, this is what we want to do. This is what we're going to focus on today. The second line of defense is, well, once it gets in, let's try to knock it out before too much damage is done. And then finally, if the pathogen is in the body, it's causing sickness, what can we do to go after that and be very specific? So it's that third line of defense that when we talk about specific immunity and antibodies, we'll get to that eventually. But for today, we're going to look at the first line of defense. We're talking about things like skin, mucous membranes, and chemicals that prevent pathogens from getting into the body in the first place. So the immune system is non-specific in the first line of defense. The body doesn't care what the pathogen is, it's just trying to prevent it from getting in the first place. So the big one that we're going to look at right here is the skin. It's the body's largest organ, and it basically forms a barrier or a shield, and it prevents things from getting in. That's why if you have a cut or something like that, you're at a greater risk for infection because your skin, the first line of defense, has been breached. The second one is mucus. And so things like saliva, snot, all of those things that will trap pathogens before they can get into the body. And both of these, the skin and the mucus, both have secretions that come through the skin and mucous membrane, and all of those secretions will inhibit bacterial growth. So not only do they perform or provide a physical barrier, but they also secrete enzymes and such that will inhibit bacterial growth and stop bacteria before it gets a chance to grow. Also on the first line of defense are tears and saliva. So they will prevent bacteria from getting in, and they contain enzymes, lysozymes, that break down bacterial cell walls. So they actually kill the bacteria before it has a chance to grow and get inside the body. There's also cilia that line your trachea, your windpipe. So these are like little hairs that line the windpipe, and they remove debris, and if you breathe in something, they'll trap it and they'll move it out of the way. So a lot of times if you cough up something, that's your cilia doing the work and preventing pathogens from getting into your body in the first place. And also, we don't think about it, but stomach acid also prevents. So some things that you may actually eat or swallow, once they make it to the stomach acid actually destroys them before they have a chance to get into your digestive system and make you sick. So again, as a quick review, we've looked at just kind of the first line of defense. And so we've got some mechanical things like skin. There are chemical, like the lysozymes and the stomach acid, that will prevent pathogens from getting into the body in the first place. And so that's going to wrap it up for today. And in our next one, we'll look at what happens once they breach that first line of defense, and we'll look at the second line of defense and how that keeps us healthy as well. So again, thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.